The book of Lamentations says that the mercies of God are new every morning. When we look back over our lives, we can see that God has truly been faithful. And we just want to express our appreciation for your love and care. Thank you, Lord, for your faithfulness.
As I look back over my life, I can see how your love has guided me. Even though I've done wrong, you never left me alone. You forgave me, and you kept on blessing me. Yes, I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. It's because of your mercy that we are not consumed. Because thy compassions faileth not, they are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness.
Well, welcome once again to Joshua's House for Christian Artists. I'm your host, SMR, better known as Apostle Dr. Lois Gibson. We thank our sponsor, which is Wabi Sabi Productions Incorporated Radio Network, up there in the Bronx, where my partner, Emmitt Thrower, who is our guest of honor. Man, this is a special treat for the world. I am excited to say Lois Gibson, aka SMR, has only exclusives on Emmitt. If you want to find out more interviews, you gotta go to my site. Hallelujah. What's up, Emmitt? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm just so excited to be able to do this for you. And, because as I said, looking at your bio alone, my God. But let me just do this how the Lord gave me this little intro. It says, Emmitt Thrower, 7 decades of greatness. Hallelujah. There have been many challenges, but God. Psalm 71:21 says, may you increase my greatness, honor, and turn to comfort me. And I'm telling you, Emmitt can tell you some stories where he had to turn so God could comfort him, because it has been a challenge to do the greatness that God has called him to do. But if you look at Emmitt's bio, I'm gonna read some of it. It's a mini synopsis of this. And listen, it's a resume of the things he's done in life. If we could only have a resume such as this. In other words, he's been busy. He has been sitting on the side looking stupid, wondering, saying, I wish I could. He did it. Hallelujah. See, Emmitt Thrower is a producer, a director, a filmmaker, a writer, an actor.
He's locked away for 20 hours a day, and he is fallen apart. Every day he is deteriorating. Right. Every day that he spends a day in jail, he is deteriorating. Okay, what this judge did was he tried to slit the baby, and you can't do that. Okay. A woman down there that actually killed someone with a DUI. And she was given 10 years in prison by the jury, and the judge he suspended all but 8 months of it. And he said that because she was remorseful. Then there was another woman, okay, who was attempted murder. She was given 5 years by the jury, okay? And of course, these are not people of color, okay? Right. And he suspended all of her sentence. So attempted murder, you go free. Autistic kid gets into a fight with a cop who has no gun. All of this happens. Right. The situation becomes escalated. You've had expert witness after expert witness walk into court testifying over and over and over again for my son. Different expert witnesses, new evaluations, all of that. None of that was taken into consideration. As Eric Olson, the prosecutor said, who is now running for Commonwealth Attorney, which is actually a very scary thought if this man actually wins.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Said in the Washington.
Keeping Stafford safe.
Right. But says in Washington Post, and this is his quote, that my son's autism had nothing to do with the way he acted that day. That he is simply a violent man. And you can go. I can show you the article.
Emmitt is a member of the Actors Equality Association, AEA. He is a disabled retired New York City police officer. And okay, you have to say this one for me. Adelco, Adelco, see? Thank you. I have speech impediment issues sometimes. Adelco Awards nominated actor, a producer of off-Broadway theater, yes, and I have a story to add to that because I myself was a recipient of one of those. Producer.
Lord, lift me up so that I can stand. Lord, lift me up so that I can stand. So much pain deep inside of me. Cast all your cares upon him who cares for you. Lord, lift me up so that I can stand. How did I get to this point? Who would have thought? Why did this have to end like this? I'll never forget how you made me whole wheat bread when I became pregnant, Mommy. Oh, how the aroma of fresh baked bread filled the house and the unforgettable taste of butter on hot bread. Makes my mouth watery. Take it back. I remember when I gave birth to our blessing from the Lord, Mr. Harold, how the doctor stated, while I was doped up on the Demerol, we will be collecting the urine sample to see if he can get hungry to you. Wow. How I watched our blessing from the Lord release not one drop into any bag. 2 shifts, 16 hours later, they covered up his manhood. When I finally decided to take it off, he just sprayed a shower of blessings all over me, and I brought him home. Mom, why does it have to get like this? We laughed together as I took him home for us to love. How blessed and love he is today. He's your running buddy. Everywhere you go, and it's Mr. Harold too. All that I ever tried to do, all that I ever hoped and desired was for you to love me. Yet no matter what I did, no what I tried, it was never your reality. When I heard Daddy say you never wanted her anyway, I made up my mind to be perfect. To never give anybody a reason to ever get rid of me. Perfection comes with a price. I even thought I was like Hazel. I cooked, I cleaned, I washed. I took care of my brother and my sister, just like Hazel took care of Mr. B. I was probably better than Hazel. Why did this have to get like this? Even when I took all those licks, smacks, cursing, yelling and name calling, I thought I could protect you.
So when you were taken away to the hospital for 3 days and 3 nights, I told Daddy I wanted to see you. When I finally walked down the long white hall, at the end of the hall, I saw you sitting on a bench. And as I reached up and touched you, I said, Mommy, 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 come back. But you was in your own world. But I thank God you did look down and saw me, and you came back. Why did this have to end like this, Mommy? I survived 15 years of domestic violence as a child. Today, whenever I hear a door open abruptly, I still jump. I survived 15 years of crack addiction because I married a down-low brother. 4 years of living in exile in a New York State prison where I got my PhD in Jesus. Hallelujah! I'm now a survivor of emotional abandonment. I am a double bag of chips and all that too. Why did this have to end like this, Mom? He took a foolish thing of the world, hallelujah, to confound the wise. For he told me he knows the plans he had for me. Plans not to harm me. Plans to give me hope for his expected end, not man's. Mommy, domestic violence is not just a smack. It's that verbal abuse where you're always minimizing and blaming and putting down, even using a child against the parent to make them feel less than they are. Mommy, why does this have to end like this? No longer will I have memories of us doing things together, because now I'm living in a DV shelter, fighting a court case to try to get my child. Why did this have to end like this? Lord, lift me up so that I can stand. Lord, lift me up so that I can stand. Have no sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is my strength. Cast all my cares upon him who cares for me. Lord, lift me up so I can stand. Lord, lift me up so I can stand. Lord, Lord, lift me up. 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 I'm gonna make it no matter what you do to me. For I'm covered in the blood. Lord, lift me up so that I can stand.
Producer of old school R&B and pop music, as well as award-winning filmmaker. Emmitt is a certified access producer for BronxNet, Public Access TV in New York City, originally from Bearden, Arkansas, and raised in Brooklyn, New York. He is currently married and living in the South Bronx. He is a father of 3 adult sons. Emmitt won national recognition and 3 film awards for his documentary on police brutality against people with disabilities entitled Where is Hope? The Art of Murder. It is currently available worldwide in universities and colleges and public libraries on a canopy.com educational streaming service. In 2018, he received a Best Comedy Award for American Filmatic Arts Awards AFAF for his comedy, drama, web series, and short film, Pigs in a Bowl. Absolutely. The soap opera and Pigs in a Bowl, Living in a Nightmare. We're going to talk about each one of these because I'm telling you, each one, you're going to have to spend a little time. But I'm going to put some little excerpts on, but you guys need to go and really check them out. He has produced such documentary as Happy, a featured documentary about life at the Bronx Senior Centers. And I remember that because I was able to be in there to do some pictures with the seniors. I'm telling you, Newborning, yes. To create this, a short documentary about award-winning photojournalist from Prague on her journey of discovery to the North Bronx. That was an experience for her, I know, a total culture shock, and an opportunity to record so much history in the Bronx. This was something she so badly wanted to do. And then the film For the Love of Ebony. Oh, yeah, you have to see that one. That was another one. Oh, my God. It's a feature documentary about a Bronx child who was abandoned and traumatized in a Bronx shelter by her drug-addicted mother. Silent Sellers is a short documentary about the struggle of street vendors in South Bronx trying to survive and feed their families. They fell prey to the black marketeers who rent them permits at exorbitant prices as they fight to get more vendor licenses in New York City. That was a nightmare. I remember that one too. Soul of a Priest is a feature documentary that tells the story of a Bronx poet, artist who was raised in the foster home and explores his struggles with alcoholism and self-hate and his unique art. Disability and Cultural Activism is a feature documentary completed in 2020 that explores the ethics of a disabled poet, artist, activist Leroy Moore Jr. He is disabled with cerebral palsy, a Bronx, New York City native that uses poetry, art, and hip-hop music to advocate for the disability rights. As an actor, Emmitt has performed in numerous off-Broadway productions as historical figures such as Paul Robeson, Patricia Lumumba, thank you. See, that's what I love about Joshua's House. You can always learn something, and I will ask you for help in a minute. Okay, the next one is Jean Paul Marat. Okay, Jesse Jackson, Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, and Adulco Award-nominated portrayal of Malcolm X in the stage production, Billy and Malcolm. And there's so much more. There's Katrina he did, with Barry White, Guided by Destiny, a tribute to the life and music of Barry White. Whoa, for those that remember Barry White, yeah, that was a croon and a half. That was kind of like the Teddy Pendergrass of our time. Hallelujah. As a writer, Emmitt has written over a dozen stage plays that had numerous stage writings and off-Broadway productions. He did a book, You'll Only Live Twice, that was with a man named South Bronx gang member. Help me say Guma's name.
Gumacindo.
Vito. Okay. The book entitled You'll Only Live Twice. He has gone on to take his rest until the sound of the trumpet. He is part of a trio of artists, writers, activists who were selected to contribute a chapter in the recently released book, Occupying Disability, Critical Approaches to Community. The contributing chapter is Black and Blue, Policing Disability and Poverty Beyond Occupancy. Okay, I'm not going to read no more. Oh, that's about it anyway. Well, let's start talking about, I want to first of all talk about your years when you got into acting, and because I remember once a year you would go down to the festival down south where all the actors were at. Tell us about that, Emmitt.
Okay, well, thank you for doing this show. I'm just looking forward to this interview so we could have this conversation. When I left the police department because of an injury and retired, and I started deciding what I would do afterwards, I actually started doing stand-up comedy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right, before I started acting. And I had stage fright.
Oh.
So therefore, I would write material up, and my comedy was telling stories that was funny. But I had stage fright, so just before going out on stage to do my comedy act, I was terrified. So I would always go to Jersey, different places where I didn't know anybody, just to experience what it was like, really, where you really had no support and you really had to overcome your fears and barriers in order to try this new experience. Well, then I decided, well, maybe let me take some acting classes. The acting classes I thought would help with stage fright because I'll get used to being comfortable on stage. So I took acting classes in Manhattan, and that's where my acting career began because the teacher, the instructor, after we did a scene and I brought the scene back to class, she said, you're a natural. And so I said, wow, that was interesting. So I figured, being that she felt that and that if I worked hard, I have an opportunity to do fairly well as a theatrical actor. So that's how my acting career began from that. And from that, my first role was actually in Fort Tryon Park in New York City. And it was a role in Shakespeare, where I played a Shakespearean character, which was an incredible experience because it's like learning another language. So then I started auditioning for roles in different theater companies. Particularly, I was interested in that time, being in New York, I wanted to perform in every Black theater that was in New York. That was my goal, I thought. So I auditioned for those, and I became an ensemble member at the Black Spectrum Theater out in Queens and the Castillo Theater, which is located in Greenwich Village in New York City. So I did several plays, usually maybe three plays at Castillo and maybe 2 plays at Black Spectrum every year forever. So I always had acting work, including other stuff I auditioned for. So I was usually sometimes I was in 2 plays at the same time. I remember one play that I was in, and I know it's just leading up to getting down to the National Black Theater down in North Carolina. But I thought this was interesting, and you would want to know this because I don't think I ever told you this before. So Arthur French, who was in a number of movies, including Car Wash. If you look at Arthur French, he recently passed about maybe a year ago or so, and he had directed me in a one man show that I played this jazz musician, and I did that play up in Upper Harlem. At the same time, I was doing another play down Lower Manhattan. So what I would do, I would do the show in Lower Manhattan. I'm sorry, it would be the other way around. I'd do the show in Upper Manhattan, get in my car, drive down to Lower Manhattan just in time to do this other show, the one-man show. And what they would do when I pull up, they would get my car, they would park my car for me. I go in and get prepared to do the show. So that was an interesting, I thought, experience that I love, but I loved acting so much that if I could manage to do 2 plays at the same time, I did it. So that was an interesting experience. Now going to the National Black Theater, which was in North Carolina, every year, and that was the National Black Theater was where all the well-known theater people who a lot of them were in film too, would go and celebrate Black theater. And so you would see like Morgan Freeman, Angela Bassett, I mean, Charles Dutton. You can go on and on about a lot of Black stars that you see were there at the theater festival. So you got to meet them, you got to hang with them, talk theater with them, see some of their plays, and just enjoy a nice experience down there. So that was where I really got introduced to like, well, I knew Woody King Jr., who was part of the Black Arts Movement. And he is a producer and director, of course, of the New Federal Theater in New York City. So we kind of eventually became friends. I mean, he was always so supportive of me, coming to shows and plays that I was in. He cast me in 2 of his plays. I got cast in. So, and then I got a personal interview with him that he gave me. But he was always, it was interesting because everybody wanted to know and get close to Woody because he was a producer and he could hire you as an actor to be in his plays. And he always had the best of the best in his plays. I mean, all the film greats Blacks that you see now went through Samuel Jackson, all of them. I mean, I could go on and on with names of Denzel. All of them they went through his theater during that time. So all of them, and like I said, there's a resume of Black actors and actresses who went through his theater, and all of them, if you look at them, were fantastic performers and went on to great success in film.
Wow, we don't have that type of training nowadays with someone like that for this new generation. I'm not into acting. I'm just a comedian, but for the Lord anyway. But first of all, some of the stuff they're producing now, I'm just not with. It's just too much trauma. We know there's enough trauma in the world as it is, and more like a lot of these new sites now with a lot of black works being produced. It's more violence and the darkness of the world that I can't even watch it. My whole spirit just has to shut it down. You know what I mean? It's just too much. It's too much pain constantly. And we need some joy. So let's talk about your first film that you did with Priest.
Okay, that film, Soul of a Priest, I met this poet. He was a poet. He was an artist, and his art was about, he was kind of stuck in a time zone. That's the way I kind of looked at it, because he was stuck during the time with Black Power and that whole time. He was in the 60s. He was kind of trapped, 60s and the 70s. He was trapped there. So it was interesting because he really was a interesting artist. He also wrote plays, and his poetry was pretty good. And so Soul of a Priest, I thought his story, he was raised in a foster home, and he was a recovering alcoholic. And he was trying to, turn his life around. And so I thought that would be interesting for me, as I just gotten into doing film as a second thing, because I was really still a theater person. So I decided to do his documentary, do his story, and that's how Soul of a Priest, was one of my first documentary films. That my approach and way of approaching these documentaries was through letting the people who was subject of my documentaries kind of reveal their story in their way, and for me to cover it in a way that showed who they were and not who I thought they were.
Amen. Amen. I know I'm grateful.
I'm a starving artist. I'm a starving artist. I've always been known as an artist, and that's the essence of me. That's just who I am. People say, well, the starving artist thing, and you see the artist starving and, hungry and all of that. Well, I'm not starving literally, but I am a starving artist in the sense of striving towards obtaining financial security, as well as acceptance in the art world, to be known. Death and rhythm. 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 And rhythm. And rhythm. Death and rhythm. I remember listening to a jazz musician, I forget his name, maybe it was Charlie Bird, but I remember him saying something about his passing, that he didn't want people to mourn, but he wanted people to celebrate. Not to mourn his death, but to celebrate his life. And I think when God has called me home, then that's what I would like. To remember me, the beautiful things that I've done, the way that I've made you feel, the sadness that I sometimes gave you, and the joy that I brought back to replace that. The loss of my brother was a devastating moment. It was painful. But it also made me realize the importance of life and the importance of my life. And it takes a lot of courage to live.
Amen. I know I'm grateful for connecting with you the way the Lord did. I had met you a year before on Tag, never saw you. But a year later, we finally connected. Both of us was in a trauma situation, and to connect with you with your off-Broadway play. At the time, I was living in a domestic violence shelter. And like you said, a year later, when I finally told you about it, you didn't know about it. But during that time, just being with you and Barbara and Mike, I had a loving family. And that when you did that Nightmare on Dream Street, that was one, and how the Lord used you to say, Lois, it's time to heal. Because you said to me, hey, won't you write a piece? And I'm like saying to myself, is he crazy? I don't know nothing about no playwriting. But the Holy Spirit said, no, it's time. Write it. It's time to begin healing. And I wrote that piece, Mommy, Why? And I'm telling you that began my actual healing, to be able to share the pain, how God uses acting and writing to heal. I was in a safe environment. I was still dealing with the court cases and stuff. I was operating in trauma, doing ministry, but also seeking my healing. And to find out that, I can act. The Lord even gave me a song to sing on it. So I was like, wow, and to have been able to be with the Thrower family who loved me through all of that trauma, that helped me to heal. Total strangers just took me in because of my crazy personality and everything. But God was my gift in the storm. And I thank God for that. I couldn't have had a better gift. And I was having fun. People was amazed to find out that I was living in a shelter. because I was able to have peace because of who I was connected with, the Throwers, and the acting abilities and the training and the love. You know, Emmitt was having plays all over the place. Every time there was something, she was just rolling in with her camera, videotaping, enjoying. Going to the theater, me going to the theater, fighting court cases, you know, not seeing my child. But yet I'm just enjoying my life because this life that God had led me through Emmitt and his love and his ability to train me. He was training me, and I realize that now you was training me to have my joy. Thank you, Emmitt.
You're welcome.
Let's talk about Where is the Hope, the Art of Murder.
Okay, Where is Hope, the Art of Murder was probably my first documentary that number one, I thought was going to take things to another level with my film work. Because I had no idea how I was going to do the film. But my friend, Leroy Moore Jr., who was the founder, who is the founder, one of the co-founders, he's the main founder of an organization that's worldwide now, a collective of disabled musicians called Crip Hop Nation. Now, Crip Hop Nation, and he found me. He's on the West Coast. And in San Francisco. And I was doing this play called Katrina, A Whole Lot of Water, about Hurricane Katrina and their stories. And I had incorporated a disabled wheelchair user into my play because I sent out press releases, and Leroy seen the press release and he contacted me. And so that's how he found out about the play. And that's how this young lady who was living in Baltimore in a wheelchair found out about it. And so I brought them up, or they came up. I didn't bring them up. They came up, and we had a special event of the Katrina, A Whole Lot of Water, just for Katrina survivors that I was able to locate who had been relocated different parts of the country. So I was able to find many in the tri-state area, bring them to the show, the first showing, feed them, show them a good time, and do the play. So that was Katrina, A Whole Lot of Water. That's how I met Leroy, who's always looking for stories about what people with disabilities are doing worldwide. And that's how he found me. So I met Leroy, and then we started talking. He has cerebral palsy. He's a poet, an activist. As a matter of fact, he grew up in Connecticut and the Bronx. So he would try to do rap back in the day. And because he was in a walker and disabled, he was not accepted in order to do poetry on the streets and at ciphers in the Bronx back in the day. But he loved it, and he continued to try doing it. He still wrote his poetry. So after years of me and Leroy talking back and forth, he visited New York, we'd seen each other. And so one day he called me, and Leroy said he was doing this mixtape CD about police brutality against people with disabilities. And he would get these disabled musicians from all over the world, and they were each going to contribute a piece to the project. So that was his goal. And I said, well, that's great, Leroy, but the problem is, if you're really trying to bring awareness, you need to do a documentary. So he came up to New York, and I went to visit him. And I said, Leroy, he brought the CD. I listened to the music. I said, this is great. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do the documentary. Now, I didn't have any idea how I was going to do the documentary. I didn't have the money. I didn't have anything. I didn't even know how to do that type of national documentary in the first place. But yet still, I took on the challenge. And that's how Where is Hope, the Art of Murder, and that process began. It took a year for him to finish the CD project. So this was in around 2011, 2012, the CD project was finished. We were still trying to raise money to do Where Is Hope, the Art of Murder. We went to all the organizations, national organizations, try to get them to partner with us, try to raise money to do the project. But then we found out that they were only interested if they had control of whatever it was. Because ultimately in this country, it all boils down to money and control. Those organizations who they look good, yeah, this is we about disabled people and police brutality, but yet you won't work with us. Even Black Lives Matter, who their founders out in San Francisco, Leroy went to them. They wouldn't work with us either.
Wow.
Right? So we found out the reality that, it's not all what it appears. And so there is hope. I said, you know what? I'm going to still try. 4 years later, in 2015, I finally said, you know what? I'm going to put this film together the way I can. And that's what I did. So that's how Where Is Hope came into existence and wound up submitting to festivals. And it received 3 international film awards and was picked up by Canopy streaming services. And that's why it's in libraries and colleges and universities worldwide.
And you know what? It's so important for people to see the people that are unseeable. I saw some of the footage on the police brutality against people in wheelchairs, how they threw them to the side and cuff them and everything else, like that can cause a threat. I remember there was one with a man that was ready to jump off the building. He had mental health problems and they were encouraging him to jump. It's like the misfits are unacceptable. Once again, the disabled in one way or another, people don't want to accept you. And it's such a shame. It really is a shame. And that's why I too have a heart for the disabled, because you and I, we're disabled, but yet we're doing great things. How dare them think they can just kick us to the curb like we're not important? I know some people that got perfectly good bodies, but they ain't got no doggone common sense.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you did that.
They're trained to kill.
What are we doing?
Disabled people are a big minority.
We could tell our own stories.
I had a very good friend. He was hit by a car while riding his bicycle. After his accident, he started to exhibit behavior changes.
My son had an IQ of 147. He spoke many languages, and he was bipolar.
On January 29th of 2011, I called 911 because he was going to be in crisis very soon.
My son was smoking a doobie at the Metreon Theater with his girlfriend. A security guard came and told him, "Put this out."
I was on the phone with the police for 45 minutes. I'm telling the operator, don't hurt him. Take him to a hospital. I don't know what to do anymore.
They claimed that he had a knife in his hand. He started making karate moves.
He opens the door and they all just shoot.
They killed my baby.
He died.
48 bullets, 9 officers, during a so-called 5150, which is the protocol for a psychiatric intervention.
And I remember when you had to go down to Virginia to shoot with the mother whose child was in Virginia. Tell us about that one when you went to Virginia.
Okay, now we went to Virginia as we was trying to gather stories and information to use in the documentary. Neely Latson, who just visited the White House maybe a couple of weeks ago, the President Biden had him up to the White House. He's autistic. At the time, he was like 18 years old, something like that. And he was arrested and in prison because he was going to the library. He's waiting for the library to open up so he can go read. And this a police officer wound up approaching him, and because he was Black and autistic, and wasn't obeying what he wanted him to do, he started something with him, and this was off duty. He was working as a school guard or whatever it was, school something, and wound up arresting him. The board they charged the young man with crimes of assaulting this police officer down in Virginia. This is down in really a place where you don't want to get arrested if you're Black, because what they do is they set you up, they arrest you, and then they charge you with all these charges and try and make you plead to anything. And if not, they say, well, you're facing 20, 30 years in prison.
Wow.
Well, if you just plead guilty. So when they got him, they wind up getting him committed to an institution. The court committed him to an institution and put him in solitary confinement for years, and would not let him. Judge would not let him out. We went down to Virginia, and I interviewed the mother and the father, and politicians down there. We went to petition the governor of Virginia to try to get him out, all sorts kind of things, and they wouldn't do it. And so Neely was like the poster child of, he's Black, he's autistic, he's disabled, and he did not break any laws, but yet he wound up years of his life given up in prison, in solitary confinement, suffering with what he went through, simply because of a system that really doesn't really care whether you're innocent or guilty. It's many of us, because of our color and because of our disabilities, are just victims to ever do this. And that was the case. So that was part of the story for the film for Neely Latson.
A story of how an autistic man was arrested by police and taken to the lockup.
Now I'm headed to prison, charged with having autism and defending myself from being beaten. Swallow whole in the belly of an unjust system, stuck in isolation. Now I'm headed to prison, charged with having autism and defending myself from being beaten. Swallow whole in the belly of an unjust system, stuck in isolation. Up early in the morning, waiting for the library to open, on the grass chilling. Out pops a policeman with eyes of crimson, claiming that I fit the description of a Black male with a gun, looking suspicious. What is this? I told the cop I'm innocent. Then he started acting racist and belligerent. Never found a weapon, but still he kept pushing it. Where's the gun? Talking about my mother, grandmother, and my sister, even Obama, calling us all monkeys. If you want to find your father, better go on Murray. Now I'm scared and angry. Look, I know my rights, but when I tried to walk away slowly, that's when things got ugly. Walked behind me and started to choke me, beat me with a nightstick and pepper sprayed me, pulled out a stun gun and tried to electrocute me, threw me on the concrete and kicked me. They call it resisting arrest, I call it grabbing this nightstick, so this cop wouldn't break my neck. I had self-defense, took the stick and the spray and scattered to the woods like a runaway slave. Feeling like Sylvester barking dogs and cop sirens got me shaking. I can't believe this happened, just wanted to read. Now I'm being treated like a felon. Sheriff deputies holding the area with search dogs out to get me. News crews report the story live on TV, hiding up in trees. God save me. After 45 minutes of dodging the dragnet, finally they got me. Now they're trying to kill me.
Show me your hands. I want to see your hands right now. You're under arrest. Put your hands around and walk back to the sound of my voice. Do it now. Show me your hands. You get on the ground.
Roughed up and handcuffed, kicked in the ribs, choked up and slapped up. What the f***? They spit in my face, punched out and beat up. Never read me my rights, and now my eyes are swole up. He said he's gonna blow my fucking head off, looking like his name is Adolf. Now I'm all lost. For 11 days of sitting isolation, and narcotic, the system is wicked. Now I'm headed to prison, charged with having autism and defending myself from being beaten. Swallowed whole in the belly of an unjust system, stuck in isolation. Now I'm headed to prison, charged with having autism and defending myself from being beaten. Swallowed whole in the belly of an unjust system, stuck in isolation.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Stop the killing, stop the crime. Stop the killing, stop the crime. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Stop the killing, stop the crime. Stop the killing, stop the crime. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Stop the killing, stop the crime. Stop the killing, stop the crime.
For the Love of Ebony.
Okay, For the Love of Ebony was, I think that was my absolutely, I just got my camera. Now, now I didn't know how to use the camera. I'd always had a camcorder or something, and I remember telling my wife, Barbara, I said, oh, I want to get this camera. It's like several $1,000s. So we got several $1,000s in the bank. Let me get the money and buy this camera that I don't know how to use. And she said, okay, go ahead. While my wife just goes along, she supports me. And so I got the camera, and all these buttons on it, I just knew how to turn it on. So I was visiting my sister in Atlanta, Georgia, and I decided to take my camera, took the camera down there, and I figured I'd just, work on trying to learn out how to use the camera. And then I found out my great niece she had taken in my great niece, who was living down there with my nephew, her son. And come to find out, I didn't know that my great niece Ebony had went through all this trauma in the Bronx with her mother, who was drug addicted, and wind up as a result, because of things that was going on, my nephew got her when her mother abandoned her, and my nephew went and picked her up and wound up delivering her to Atlanta, and her grandmother was taking care of her. So I go down there. I don't know this story. Nobody ever told me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to my sister, and they tell me, I'm like, I didn't know this. So I said, oh, let me get my camera. So I got my camera, and I interviewed my two nephews, my sister, and Ebony, who was little at the time, to tell me the story about what happened. Mm-hmm. And that's how For the Love of Ebony came out. It just, I think it was about 8 or whatever it was, or about 8.
Yeah, that's a powerful piece when I had seen it back there. And now to see Miss Ebony, a social worker, boy, I tell you, because of being connected with the family, like the Throwers and everything else. And she is such a blessing, because she's in Your Pigs in a Bowl. and I right. And I'll be like, wow, what a blessing. But it was great for you to have told her story. And, that was important, because for people need to understand, we have a lot of children out here that are lost. and we need to take responsibility for them. Where, like I said, it takes a village to raise a child. I remember as a child that when I went outside, I had to go check on every senior citizen in the area, knock on their door to ask them if they needed anything from the store, just to make sure they were all right. And all them senior citizens, anytime I needed anything, and they was always looking out for me. You had all this love, all these little pockets of love, which you need and which children don't have today because there's so much craziness going on. But that is a blessed story.
Yeah, let me just add this one little thing about Ebony. So Ebony now is like, she's 24, and she's just visiting. She's going to be doing a graduate school and college in Chicago. So
okay,
just went up there, so she's doing that now, and she's also teaching. And so, but what's interesting is that you talk about Pigs in the Bowl and how she got in Pigs in the Bowl. I had promised her when I did Love of Ebony when she was little. I said, she wanted to see her mother. Because her mother wasn't going down there. Her mother promised and always break promises. I said, I'm going to bring you up to New York. So when she graduated high school, I said, you can come up to New York. I'll bring you up to New York. And she came up for a month. So we had her for a month. During that month that she was up there, I was shooting Pigs in the Bowl. I said, come on, you can be in the film. That's how she got in Pigs in the Bowl. Now, just to go to show you how things can work and you never know, is my latest film, A New Morning, which is an autobiographical story about me from 2001 to 2018 living in the Bronx. And I gave her a flip video camera. That's what this camera called, a little flip video.
Yeah,
look. You remember flip video?
Yes.
So as Jana, who came from Prague, who wanted to see the Bronx, came up from Prague the same time for a month and wanted to do a collaboration. So I gave Ebony the little camera, and everywhere we went, she would just with a little camera film whatever she wanted. That film that she shot, of all the things I did with Jana, I wound up being able to use in my film New Morning that documented. So I didn't know. I was just like, here, you take the camera, just whatever you film, however you do it is good. So just to show you, you never know how things that you do in life might be useful in other parts of your life. So always engage yourself 100% in life. And 100% in people in a giving way, because it always comes back to bless you.
Amen. Amen. Now tell us about Pigs in the Bowl, the soup opera, Living the Nightmare. I thought that for me personally, when I sat there, I saw it on a spiritual level. The devil, how he was coming in and how he came in through the soup and the different people. It's funny, but it's how the enemy operates with the slick Willie creeping in and everything else. And the various actors. I remember when you had the screenplay, and I happened to go and record it all. I laughed through the whole thing. For me, it was funny because I saw the enemy all running through the thing. I mean, where did you come up with that idea from?
Pigs in the Bowl? Okay. Because I love documentary film work, and I'm an activist. I'm an activist probably before I'm an actor. So everything I do has have a real world impact and real meaning on something, a social issue or whatever. I don't just do film just to entertain. I might do documentary or do film that's entertaining, but my reason for doing it is to try to create change. Or to change conditions that aren't favorable for people and different groups. So Pigs in the Bowl was my first opportunity to write a narrative film. I joined this group called the Bronx Filmmakers. And these are filmmakers from the Bronx, young filmmakers, and they're all doing writing and they're doing their little films. And here I come, this old disabled guy. And so I'm like, okay, I'm here, and let me write little film. So I just wrote this little thing up that I'd seen this crazy scene about this guy who's in this restaurant, and they were serving him guinea pigs, right? And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so I created a story around how did they get to that? And how it got to that was that I really realized for me as a metaphor that we are all pigs in a bowl, which, you know, some people know that pigs in a bowl stands for people in government systems.
Yes, yes.
That's what writers writing is something that most people don't know about. But we're all in a bowl and we're all pigs. You know, and it's the people outside the bowl manipulating the people in the bowl, giving them whatever kind of food or non-foods they want, feeding them poisons, feeding them information, disinformation, whatever. So that's where I think the majority of us are, particularly in, I'm sure in this country particular, but I'm probably sure in most countries, that they control us through everything that they do, through the food, through the medical system, through the opportunities, and they pit us against one another. So that was the basis of me creating Pigs in a Bowl, and it was very reflective of what was happening in the Bronx at the time. So I created about this community in the Bronx who was going through the period of gentrification, where they were coming in, taking over, redeveloping our communities that they had let just disintegrate, put us out, raise the rents where we couldn't afford to live the place we lived forever, where we grew up. And they would come in and renovate it, nice stores, nice everything, but they didn't do it when you were there. And so that's the story I want to tell, and that's how Pigs in a Bowl.
Lost in my mind, I can't see the forest for the trees. I'm trying to be free, and my phone not working. No Google Maps for me, and I never learned to use a compass. So I'm wondering and wondering how far I could be from reality. The fantasy is dripping on me. Gotta pull myself together, I keep falling apart. I'm from a city where nobody has a soul or a heart. You get in when you fit in and you play your part. I trust no one, just the man in the mirror, but now he's starting to look unfamiliar. I walk home at night, looking over my shoulder, and now my shadow got me jumping. I used to be much bolder, but as I get older, it only gets colder. All my ambition starting to fade, all of my passion washing away. I make a deal with the devil to get it back again. Can somebody help me? Can somebody please? If you got the potion, could you give it to me? If you got the potion, could you give it to me? We all lost trying to find a way. We all lost looking for brighter days. We didn't stand through the storms. Pain was too strong, our ambition got washed away.
Buddy, this is fair. How can you do this to us? Just shut the soap opera down for minor violations. Whoever's responsible for this will feel the pain we feel.
Ooh, ow.
You okay, buddy?
Yeah, I think my tennis elbow was acting up.
You know you play tennis.
Well, I don't, but I played so much tennis on my Xbox, I think I got tennis elbow now. Ooh.
Okay. Sorry bastards. They will feel the pain that we feel.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
You okay?
Ooh. Yeah, I think my old war injury is acting up again.
What war? I didn't know you fought in a war.
Well, I did, but I was watching CNN Wolf Blitzer doing Operation Desert Storm. I fell asleep on the couch, tumbled to the floor, and broke my leg. I just got a Purple Heart for CNN for that.
Wow. What a war story. I didn't know.
Yeah, shit happens. Ooh. Ooh.
The closing act by the health department is pure racism.
Well, I don't think so much force. People got sick from food poisoning. Some folks mysteriously died as a result. I mean, I don't know what happened.
You took adequate precautions. The guinea pig in the bowl strategy was brilliant.
Yeah, it was brilliant, but not brilliant enough. The guinea pigs were valiant in their effort, saved many lives, prevented many costly hospital visits.
Sure did.
But some folks just refused to embrace the concept of using guinea pigs as soup tasters. You know, in this ongoing fight against restaurant soup terrorism, it's real simple.
Simple to all but those who pay the ultimate price.
Luckily, some people only came down with a bad case of public diarrhea.
I take diarrhea any day. Death is too permanent for my taste.
You know, I got a vague idea how poison got in some of the bowls of soup, but I can't prove it. There's no witnesses, including man's dreams.
At least you can dream, buddy. Unlike the dead victims.
True. Well, at least we're not persons of interest, at least not now.
I know I'm not a person of interest. Anyway, I know who did it.
You do?
Common sense says it was evil demons.
Evil demons? Give me a break. Why you say that, Miss Fortune?
Buddy, I know what I know you know. Those pesky demons destroying your business, destroying our community.
If that's true, then there's nothing we can do about it.
Could take a stand and fight the power.
This ain't the 60s, Miss Fortune.
It seems to me that there's no place for us here.
If not here, then where?
Well, buddy, the neighborhood is changing. And in that change, we are not included.
I think you gotta leave up to the future to determine that. But I do know that I'm too old and too tired to be running.
My aching feet are tired of running too.
This is my home. I was here during the good times and during the bad times. And I want to be around when the good times come back again.
Me too. Power to the people. We stay.
Hey, Miss Fortune, what you raising your fist about this time?
Because we stay.
Well, then we stay. Buddy, what's up? Just came from the soup opera and it was closed. What happened? Ran out of soup? Hell no. This is ridiculous. Hey, yo, boom, check this out.
They're spying us out while they're slipping in.
Gentrifying our neighborhood, redirecting our dreams.
Time is ticking. It's taking us all.
Well, I still got some time left in this body before I'm erased. So it's time to make the donuts or become a donut hole, which is nothing.
Whatever you decide, buddy, I got your back.
You know the way I move, buddy. Wherever the people go, misfortune will flow.
You rhyming now, Miss Fortune? You got poet potential.
Yeah, but only if she's a short poet.
I may not grow much bigger, but I can still keep my finger on the trigger.
Ow. Go ahead, Miss Fortune.
So speaking of going, I gotta go. I'll see y'all later.
Ow! 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 Ow!
Power to the people. We stay.
But tell us about the story Happy with the seniors in the Bronx.
Okay, Happy. In 2016, I won what we call a Brio Award for it's Bronx recognizes its own. That's what Brio stands for, from the Bronx Council of the Arts. And I won an award. I actually won an award for Where is Hope, The Art of Murder. And I also got a award grant to teach seniors how to do film.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked out I was selected, and I picked out the Bronx Senior Center that I wanted to go. And I want to do a story about life with seniors who their happiness is in coming to the senior center and what activities and people that they have in their social life on a daily. And so that's what it was about, exploring that, and then giving these seniors the opportunity and empowering them to create their story and tell their stories of their everyday life and how it brings them happiness. And that's how Happy came about. So I would go in, I would have lunch with them and talk with them, and a lot of them did not speak English, so it would be interesting that we were still able to communicate with each other, even though all of them didn't speak English. So then I got them engaged and wanted to participate in the film. So some I gave them responsibilities. Some were in charge of the camera, others would create things for the set. They would do paintings and different things. So everyone had an activity to do. I would go and train them in different sessions about, how to create the props for the film that we were producing, Happy. So they were doing drawings and all kind of things. And so I engaged with them for several months. They would film stuff. They did interviews. They were taking a little camera, going around interviewing each other. They even got so good that for those who didn't speak English, they would translate. One of them would translate for me what the ones who were speaking in Spanish were saying. So they were very supportive. We had a lot of fun. And eventually, there was these young people who came to visit them occasionally. And I was filming one day, and the young kid came, and they were so happy that they wanted to participate. So I incorporated them into the film. We were dancing, they were dancing with the seniors, we were filming. And so we wound up producing an hour of film on their activities, where we're doing exercises, lunch, playing bingo, all their activities that they did that brought them joy. Socializing in the TV room to explore and show that seniors want a life. They can have a life. You just got to give them opportunity to socialize and support, and give them an opportunity to do things that maybe they didn't know that they could do. So that was the experience with Happy. So I was happy, they was happy, everybody was happy.
Yeah, I was blessed to be able to photograph some of that, and they just love their Emmitt, boy, and to see some of the crafts that some of them were doing, creating jewelry and stuff, like you said, jewelry, painting, this and that. They were happy. They had a place to go and be active because it wasn't over. And that's the thing people have to realize. Just because you reach a certain age, as long as your brain can function, let them be creative. Set a place for them to be who they want to be and engage them to do things differently. You know what I mean? And they had fun. When it came to filming, they listen. I wouldn't be surprised that during the pandemic, some of them kept them film going, creating stories from that, how they survived through the pandemic. Wouldn't be surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, the other thing, just let me add this, is that, because I do everything to the end. I want to give you the full treatment. So I want these seniors to have a real experience. So for the final event and the screening of the film, I had an award ceremony. I had all awards, like little Oscars, little awards to give them, get certificates and different things, and we had food. It was great. And then walked had a red carpet. So they got an experience that I'm sure they will always remember. I'll always remember it, because who else comes in and gives them that opportunity? Now, let me just tell you about this real quick. There was one senior in there, and when I first came there, she was just fascinated with me. she used to grab my butt. So it was fun. I mean, I'm like, and the thing is that she did that all the time to people. So the staff would told me, I said, no, it's not a problem. I understand. But yeah, I tried to be special to her, because whatever it was, that attention that she got, and she appreciated it and so forth. So I got why she did what she did. It wasn't in a negative manner that she was doing it. It's just the way she expressed herself then. And so I responded totally by being very attentive to her, and she was very helpful and enjoyed. And she couldn't speak English. So.
All right. Well, let's talk about one of your latest award-winning Best Documentary 2023, the Symbiotic Film Festival, winner of Big Sid, the Mannaheim Arts and Film Festival, winner of Night of the Real Awards, the ONYKO Onkyo Award.
That's good enough for me.
It's the Disabled Artist Showcase, Creating Our Spaces. Tell us about this one.
Okay, Disabled Artist Showcase, Creating Our Spaces. I put in a proposal to the Bronx Council of the Arts. I wanted to do a documentary about Crip Hop Nation and Leroy Moore, who was a co-producer with me on Where Is Hope? The Art of Murder. I wanted to do a story about a documentary about Crip Hop Nation, because it was having such a worldwide impact with musicians with disability in all these different countries, because they got chapters in probably about 12, 15 countries.
Wow.
And so he had been developing this since pretty much when I met him in about 2005 or 6. And so I wanted to do the story. And then the second part of the story I wanted to do to showcase artists, disabled artists, performing. The Disabled Artist Showcase. So what happened is I got money to do the showcase, but didn't get money to do the documentary. So I wound up taking that money and creating Disabled Artist Showcase, expanding it a little bit, because it was meant to be part 2 of the documentary, but I made it the main one. And so that film, because of all this attention these days with content and things about people with disabilities, because now it's a big thing with industries, because they're getting a lot of pressure. Corporations, the film industry, the recording artist industry, there's a lot of pressure now for them to be more inclusive with people with disabilities. Bring about more accommodations and make things more accessible, so that people who have these skills can participate. They can write, they can act, they can do all these things. There's no need to have someone who is able-bodied and can hear to play a deaf person, when you can get a deaf actor who actually doesn't hear to do the same thing, only better. And so that was the whole thing. If you make it accessible, then they can do it. So I wanted to showcase some of the leaders and activists who are very skilled in their art forms, to kind of showcase that this is what we are denying the general public simply because of their disabilities. I want to bring it to the attention of people and the world, to hopefully open up some eyes and hopefully open up some doors. And so that's how Disabled Artist Showcase, creating our spaces came about. So in the process, I got two of the artists was Leroy, who was a poet, and Keith Jones, who both of them, by the way, won a sports Emmy for a Netflix film, Phoenix Rising. Right, so they created the music, and so it's like 4 disabled artists who, now you didn't hear much about it. This was 2021. They won Emmys, but yet they got no real support from mainstream media. You know, it's people win an Emmy, you hear all about it. Now you win an Oscar, and you're disabled, they blast it out because they want to get the benefit. Netflix got the benefit of saying, look, we produced this film and we use disabled artists. But yet, when it came to bringing them to the Emmys, they didn't invite them to the Emmys. They didn't, and then to last minute, they asked Leroy. Leroy refused. I'm saying, I'm glad you did. How are you going to invite me to the Emmys that I won an Emmy, help you win an Emmy, and you're going to invite me to participate in the Emmys?
Wow.
Yes, at the last minute. So he didn't go, and I said, good for you, because they don't respect you, they respect your work.
Exactly, exactly.
So yeah, so Disabled Artist Showcase, when I started, it started picking up traction. I really wasn't expecting that much from, I expected just to get it out there, okay, some people see it, try to get it shown. But then it just, a lot of interest came in, so I started entering it into festivals. And all of a sudden, these festivals really loved it and was receiving all these awards from all over the world.
Yeah.
Festivals I entered, and they're still receiving awards as of today, and I'm sure throughout the year, because a lot of other festivals are going to be looking at it.
Because it's a group of people that have been forgotten, finally getting their due. You know, it's kind of like the homeless people you see on the street, but yet you want to ignore them.
Right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm excited. Clipped into it. And let's talk about your final one, an autobiography film. Let me tell you something. I see you won the AIMAFF award, the Toronto, Canada Official Selection International Black and Diversity Film Festival Award. You won the, here we go, 8.5 Film Awards. You got the Golden Lion Awards, the New York awards. You have so many awards for this one here. And I love the poster, man. When I saw that poster, I was like, yeah, you know, Newborn, A Bronx Tale. Tell us about this one. Yeah.
Okay. Newborn, A Bronx Tale was a film, and it's an autobiographical film about my experience of recovering in the Bronx from a major illness in 2001 up until 2018. And what happened is the film Newborn was not a word. And it's still not a word. Jada, when we talk about, see, everything I do is connected to something else. Jada, who was visiting from Prague, and we were doing this collaboration, you know, she came over to the house and we started figuring out what are we going to do in our collaboration. And she was talking, she said the word newborn. She probably meant rebirth. I said, no, I like that word newborn. I'm going to keep that word newborn. And so that's how the title came about. So I did a short film about a newborning, the creativist. And that was the first film I did with the newborning moniker that had more Johnny in there. So we were going to do several projects in this collaboration. We're going to do a full photo book with words written by me. So I wrote all these words up, or poetic stories about the Bronx, called Newborning. And so she was going to add photos and stuff to that and create this book. So she went back to Prague. And when she went back to Prague, her mother became ill, seriously ill, for a couple of years. So we could never complete the project because she was dealing with that. And then the pandemic came. So eventually I'm like, you know what? I got what I thought was a great text that I didn't just want to not put out there for people to partake in, to share it with them. So I decided we're not going to use that dialogue for the photojournalist book. I'll just write new dialogue whenever she is able to do the book. In the meantime, I'll do something else with the text. So I decided I'll do an audio book. Right? So I had discovered this voiceover artist that I used in another film, Silent Sellers. And so I gave it to him and said, do this chapter and let me hear that sound. And we did it. I said, oh, this sounds good. So that's what I was working on, was an audio version of the exact text story that I had written for Jana to create for her photo book.
Awesome.
And so that became the foundation for the audio book. Then, of course, to get it on Amazon and create an audio book, you have to create an actual ebook or a textbook. So I had to create a Kindle book with the same dialogue, with text and images, and then the audio book. And as I was working with the audio in my editing software, I started putting images to the, as a filmmaker and as editor, and we always get these visions.
Yes.
And images, so I just playing around and start putting images of things that came to mind as I was listening to my own words as recorded by this voiceover that I directed him how to deliver the voice, because he's speaking for me. And he did a remarkable job.
Yes, he did. I enjoyed his voice.
And so then I'm like, oh, this is nice. It was just like putting a puzzle together. I started adding more and more images. Next thing I know, I had this 6th chapter, this whole thing filled up with images. And it was a story in images told through that exact dialogue that was my audiobook. That's how the documentary came about. And because I never intended to write a documentary about me, but because Johnny insisted that we do the collaboration about me and my work, that's how that dialogue was written. I didn't want to do it at first. I'm glad I did do it, but that's how Newborning came out. And eventually it was 6 short I call it a book. I call it a cinema book, because it's a film, it's a documentary, but I created it like a book. There's stages instead of chapters. So it's different stages, different chapters. And so even the visual thing is not a reinterpretation of the words. It's the exact words in the book and exact images. So it's not it's not like you turn a book into a film. Here I created something that didn't exist. A cinema book. It's a book that you don't read, you watch. How weird is that?
Only you, Emmitt. I'll give you that. You always think out of the box, and that's a good thing. To be 7 decades, man, and see your brain is sharp, boy, sharp.
Yeah, so and I actually was 99% complete with this project in 2021. The problem was I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't think it fit into any particular category because it was the way it was put together. And so eventually what I decided to do was put it all together as one piece. So I re-edited it into a continuous one piece, call it a cinema book, and put it out as a documentary.
Amen.
So as I was doing Disabled Artist Showcase, with getting some rhythm and winning some awards, and so I said, let me just throw my film out there. And so I started putting Newborning, A Bronx Tale out there, and it started getting hits and winning awards all over the world. And so that's when I realized that I was very fortunate and blessed that all of a sudden have two films that I really didn't expect to get this kind of attention at this stage early on, because it's only been at this point maybe 6 months since I even put the films out there to the festival circuit to be able to win probably at least 14 awards between them and
counting.
and counting. So it's a lot of straight up awards and a lot of special mention awards, and I'm not even including those yet. So it's been an interesting experience, and I'm looking forward to see where Newborning winds up. As far as the International Black Adversity Film Festival in Toronto, Canada, that festival is in June 2023. And at the moment, I'm planning on attending that festival. They'll be screening both films. They accepted both films.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's going to be an interesting experience in Toronto to actually see my film screening there, both films screening there. So it'll be a wonderful experience, and we'll see what happens there. Disabled Artist Showcase, I went to filming. They did a filming at the film festival in Utah. So I went out there and we won the award. So that was an interesting experience where I met about 6 or 7 other young filmmakers. And actually, they contacted me and they came to Utah, but they live in different states. And their film they did with filmmakers in different states. So they found a way to create film, and they're all in different states. So we had such a great time. By the way, I know it's not important, but I'm gonna say it anyway. They're all white.
And that's okay. Listen, that's okay for now. Look, you up in there now. Before there's gonna be some black women up in it. You know what I mean?
But what's interesting about that is, of course, I'm 71. These were young, and they love being around me. They love what I had, things that I told them. Because when you put some wisdom on people, you can't ignore it. And they really had a great time. So they called me up and said, look, we want to do a documentary about our experience together out in Utah. So that's what we're working on. That's what they're working
on. That's wonderful. But that's what it's about. People coming together for a like cause, a passion that you have, and sharing. Pouring out into each other, mentoring each other, enjoying the blessing and the gift of that, because that's a gift, that's a blessing, and you had a good time. So Now I wanna close out with the one you did on my second year. Share with us about that one, because it had me crying, Emmitt. I didn't realize, like I said, I didn't get a chance to grieve any of the trauma that I dealt with until I saw that, and I was like, wow. Ooh.
I mean, the thing about my work is, like I said, if it ain't meaningful to me, I don't do it. I don't do things for instant gratification. I do things because they have a deeper meaning for me about change and the way I feel the world and the way I approach my activism and tackling issues and trying to get those people who have stories that need to be told because they could impact someone. Someone could learn from them and their stories. They need to be out there because we get fed all this garbage in other media that we need to counteract that. Counteract that with real stories about real people telling their stories their way. So the original short film I did on the Apostle was what was the name of it?
Abraham journey.
Abraham's journey. Yeah, it's only a number. And so it's only a number, Abraham's journey. It's only a number because she was a senior at the time she made that move. And so to me, it's like, yeah, and I'm a senior doing what I'm doing, but it's only a number. And Abraham's journey that's what she was on. That's what God called her to do at that time. And she prepared for years to get herself in a position to do that journey. And then that day came. So the first year was about the experience of leaving New York and getting out there in Billings, Montana. So that was the first year. And then things don't go smoothly like we think things are gonna go. All kinds of things happen. And so when the second year came, we wanted to explore all the things that happened and where she was at this point a year later. And so the second film that we did, short story, was about that journey and, dealing with the obstacles and the trauma and the changes that she was going through, that second year, and how it's constantly adapt and change in order to survive and continue to do the work that she set out to do, that God laid in her path to do, and having faith that whatever it is, she's going to be supported to be able to continue her work. And that's what I want to show. I want to show that even though she's an apostle, she goes through a lot. Yes, everybody doesn't know what she goes through because her job is just to do her job. Look, we all be going through things, but sometimes as leaders, and most time as leaders, our job is not really to try and get empathy or sympathy about what we're going through. Our job is to give and do our job. And we to other leaders mainly and friends, close friends, we manage to deal with our personal issues and get through those things. And so it's about survival, but survival, not just for self, but survival for the good of a larger purpose. And so that's what that second film was about. So I was able to discover a lot of things about the apostle during that story, during that film. And I'm looking forward to the third year because every year,
oh Jesus,
new stories, new storms, and new avenues will open up and avenues will close. So I'm always interested to see what's happening this year. So we'll look forward to that. But you need to check out, we have it on YouTube, the second year journey. You need to look at that and see what it took for her to get through that second year.
Oh God.
Yes, I've got joy like a river. I've got unspeakable joy, not like this world could give me. Got joy like never before. Sometimes this world may try me, my peace they try to destroy. Yes, I've got joy like a river. I've got unspeakable joy of the Lord is my strength. Nehemiah.
Wow. The only reason why I took this journey to Montana, living in a foreign land called Montana, is because I'm a servant of the Most High God. I'm His apostle. I have a personal relationship with God. And all the 20 years I've been doing ministries, whatever the Lord said do, I do.
Got joy. Nehemiah 8:10. Yes, I've got joy like
because I made a promise to him in 1999 when I was on my bunk in Albion Correctional Facility. I said, God, if you are real, clean me up from this crack and I'll go anywhere for you. Not knowing that Montana would be one of the places to go. But he said, Lois, I need you to do an Abraham journey. I said, ooh. He said, you've done all you can do here in New York. Here in New York, at the time, I was a reentry specialist. I also dealt with domestic violence, human trafficking, homelessness, prison issues, social issues. That's what it was about. It took about 3 years because I had to start preparing to leave, because you just don't get up and just go anywhere. You know, I had a lot of services I had to transfer over so that when I got to Montana, the things of comfortability that I thought I had here, it would be some of it there. So when I was about ready to go, my mother got sick. It was a blessing in disguise. My mother had became sick, and up until 2009, we really had no real relationship because it got destroyed because it's what she had told the police when I was living with her, that I was forced to become homeless, kicked out of my home. And even that was a blessing in disguise because God had wanted me to go into a domestic violence shelter and to really see what was happening to traumatized women and children. That's a whole book in itself. The things that I saw in there, and where the city pays about $4,000 a week, but yet women really weren't getting the services they really needed. They were basically there for the money count. But God needed someone to go into the shelter to encourage these women, to let them know, even though you're in this situation, God was going to take care of you. I was a living example of it. You know, I'm fighting court cases to get custody of my son, to see my son. I'm doing ministry, and I'm ministering to the women in the shelter, and all the processes that they had to go through. It was constant PTSD. I remember one day when I had to go downtown to get some documents, and I realized that I couldn't even get into the subway. What was happening was that I was traumatized so bad that every place I went to was like a rejection demon on every post. So what I had to wind up doing, the Lord told me, is I needed to get some worship music and put on a little shuffle they had back then. And once I did that, I was able to travel. And eventually I did get back down in the subway, but I was able to, no matter where I had to go, I would put that back on my ears to just shake off that depression that was trying to take me out. Plus fighting the court case. I'm living up in Harlem, having to come back to Staten Island, you know, and it was a lot of trauma. So because of that, me and my mother, and I explained to her that she lost a relationship, a mother and daughter relationship. And I said to her, I never thought I would have to live out the Bible where it says mothers against daughters. Well, that was one of the most dramatic things of betrayal I found. So my mother got sick, and when she got sick, the Lord said, you need to go to your mother. And I thank God that during that whole process of me living in my new place and encountering my mother along the way, that my heart wasn't hardened. I would see them sometimes on the road, and they would just go toot toot and drive on past me. And I would say, God, the word says, bless those that curse you. And I said, God, just bless them, just bless them. So when the call came from my son that my mother had been sick, and my sister told me, you better tell your mother. My mother had been sick for over 30 days. She was unable to get out of the bed. She couldn't walk. There was a lot of health issues. My son was taking it by himself. And the Lord said, when you go see her, tell her, give her this word, that she's prideful, and tell her, ask if she want to live. And I asked my mother, I said, Ma, you want to live? She said, yeah. I said, Well, I will do this with you then. So I have spent 2 years with my mother. And in those 2 years, God allowed us to develop a relationship again, and where, everything is good. It's good. I was the one with my mother 24/7 in the hospital. I was the one when the doctors would come in and tell her, well, the surgery at your age will not work. And I said, the devil is a liar. Or they would tell her you would have to wear back braces on you. I said, the devil is a liar. My mother's the poster child, and I thank God for that. So here it is, 2020, March. My mother's better, and I'm ready to leave, but I'm so exhausted. The pandemic came. When the pandemic came, it was a blessing for me because I was able to get some rest I needed. Within 2 weeks' time, I had, via the internet, ported out my Section 8 to Montana. I did everything online. I used that time to rest until June, when God said, pack up. What made it even better was the building I was living in, they had sold the building. So there was no way me trying to say, oh, maybe I'll extend it or go somewhere. Packed up. I didn't have a dime in my pocket for the moving. God opened up a door for the Elks. It's an organization called the Elks. They paid for me to transport my furniture to go to Montana. And August 4th, 2020, I got on that plane. I had a JFK and left New York to do my assignment, my Abraham journey. And that's why I came in obedience, because what God told me to do, and I said yes to the Lord. It doesn't matter. I uprooted my youthful self at 65 to leave family, friends, support system to go live in a foreign land. I left the Big Apple, Empire State, to go to Big Sky Country, Treasure State. And it was like night and day. Whoa. The first year experience in Montana. That's a book I'm working on now called No Punks on the Front Line, Living in a Foreign Land. For me, coming from New York to Montana, there were so many social issues that were dropped. First of all, I'm a veteran. And as a vet, I have something called HUD-VASH. So I had a social worker, which I had fought to get. Because I knew me transitioning from New York into something I didn't even know about, I would need support. I filled out the forms because as a veteran, you get, the federal government had put away money automatically for veterans to get housing, to get the things they needed for housing. And it was through Volunteers of America. Unfortunately, Volunteers of America, after I filled out all the forms, they dropped the ball. They dropped the ball. I had to write a letter to the president of it. And only reason why he really responded, because when I wrote the letter, it wasn't as the veteran, it was as Apostle Dr. Lois Sayers Gibson. Well, Emmitt, I want to thank you, man, for sharing your wealth of information, life experience, wisdom. I didn't know that you started out as a comedian. I never knew that. That's special, man. That's probably why you always be laughing at me half the time.
Right.
Now, if someone wants to see your entire everything, each and every one of these, they're on your YouTube site?
No.
Okay, where would they go?
There is no one place to see all the films I did.
Okay.
Where is Hope? If you do a search for Where is Hope, the Art of Murder, you'll find where your location, where it is. It's not on YouTube, not on video, but you'll be able to find a site that hosts that, including on Canopy, whereas if you have a library card, then you can see the film free from Canopy streaming services. Other than that, some of these other films, a couple of them are also on their own site. Just do a search for the name.
Okay.
Now, Silence, some of them are on YouTube. I think Silent Sellers and a couple of the others. The one I did about essential workers, essentially yours.
Let's talk about that one. That was a powerful one. I thank you for bringing that up. Tell us about that one, because I'm glad I was there to watch it, to experience, and woo, yes. Tell us about that one.
but essential workers are essential workers.
The cops just arrested a food delivery bicycle.
Any essential worker doing their job is exempted from the curfew.
They contradicted so many statements saying that we're going to get extra pay. I never received any pay.
Couldn't find funeral homes to service people quickly. You know, we had to just try to get people claimed so they wouldn't go into Potter's Field right away.
And the tennis too, to see so many of them die, like broke my heart. I seen the bodies dead because they use more drugs.
People are emotionally exhausted, spiritually exhausted, and of course physically exhausted.
So much death in such a short period of time.
It's very stressful. You know, sometimes cause anxious, sometimes cause kind of panic because we overwhelm every day.
So many people waiting in line to get into a funeral home.
Caged in because of the pandemic.
People were suffering.
People are going to have to still continue to adapt.
Many people were forced to work from home remotely, but some of the essential workers had no choice but to go to their jobs, risking their own safety.
And when I would hear the news, people thinking it was fake, I said, they need to come see it.
About that one.
Okay. Essentially Yours was a film I decided to do in regards to essential workers during the pandemic. But I didn't want to do everybody did about doctors and nurses, and we all know that, and we appreciate everything they did during the pandemic. But that wasn't the total story. The total story that, for the most part, was omitted was about the people delivering your food to your house, the people who were working in a hospital, but they weren't doctors or nurses, the people working in agencies dealing with people with disabilities and they had to be taken care of, special needs that had to be taken care of. So I want to do the story about those people. And so during my search for trying to find the right people to interview and to be a part of that, it's interesting. A lot of them were already in my family. So, and between my family and my wife's family, and I did four participants. 3 of them were from our families. One of them was another friend of Barbara's who worked in the hospital. And their stories became the foundation for, and then my nephew, John Wilson, Dr. John Wilson, who lives in Atlanta, who is a therapist down in Atlanta. I asked him to participate to give his, what was his experience and what did he think about some of the things that people were going through during the pandemic. So I was able to incorporate that into Essentially Yours, the short film. So they told their stories. We had a young person tell their stories. My nephew, or Barbara's sister's son. We had him. We had a mother and a son. We had my nephew, and then we had 2 other people. My niece, and so that's what it became. And it became much more than I thought it would be. When I started hearing these stories, because again, we think we know people, even in our family. I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So we discover we need to talk to each other more to discover who we are, what's going on. Instead of we think the last time I seen a person, they were doing this. Well, that was 5 years ago. They've done a lot of things and changed since then. If you don't constantly communicate with people and talk to them, you don't know what's going on in their lives.
Exactly.
Or what they're going. And sometimes even if you talk to them every day, you still don't know what's going on in their lives. So that was Essentially Yours. The Work Soldiers. That was the complete title. Essentially Yours, The Work Soldiers. And that film is available on YouTube. along, like I said, with Silent Sellers and a couple of the others.
Well, all righty. I want to thank you.
We are not consumed. Because thy compassions faileth not. New every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is. Come on, sing it. Lord, you've been so faithful. Now we're going to go into another part. Come on, help us sing it. I can never repay you. How you loose me. Come on, how you made a way. You turned. You've been my joy. My hope. My peace. Strength. Come on, sing it. You've been. Lord. Come on, think about what you're singing. God has been so faithful to us. Sing it. You've been. Lord. Come on, we're going to sing it one more time. I can never repay how you loose me. Come on, how you made a way.